The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Monday, July 30th, Tuesday, July 31st, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say thank you so much for you joining us tonight on this show. If you want to do me a favor, take a listen to our archives. They are free at our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Hit the subscribe button. We would appreciate it. Our website is going to have a new look very, very soon. It is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. I want to say a big thank you to all of you out there in Spaced Out Radio land. The love, the admiration, the respect that you paid to my family after a very, very tough 10 days after finding out my nephew had passed away was absolutely lifting for me and everybody else. The love that you all shared when I needed it, I could never repay. Thank you so much for everything that you did. But we are back in the hot seat now. We are ready to make some history each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. And it starts right now. You know, about 5 months ago, we had Joedy Cook on the show talking about Dogman and Bigfoot and had some of the weird and strange encounters surrounding both of these creatures detailed to us. One of these stories that Joedy had mentioned on the air was that of a fellow United States Army soldier who was part of a Delta Force type team that dealt with aliens. Now, tonight we're going to revisit that story with Joedy, but some interesting stuff popped up around it. After that show, Joedy started getting messages from other soldiers who served in hotspots like Afghanistan, stating they'd seen these warrior-type creatures as well. So tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Mr. Cook, a 20-year Army veteran who served in some of the world's toughest military areas, is back to shed some light into the cryptid world as he and his team continue their search into Dogman and Bigfoot's phenomena. Based out of the strange state of Ohio, he doesn't have to go far. Joedy and his crew have had their hands full with reports coming in from all over North America. Then in bottom of the hour of number 3, Everett Themer will be back with the latest edition of The Encounter from our Spaced Out Radio newsroom. Joedy Cook, always a pleasure, my friend, to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How have you been?
Doing good. How are you?
I am very, very good, man. I feel, up until yesterday, I was emotionally exhausted, but I am right back in the hot seat, knowing that we got a great job to do and a great show with you tonight. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing good. Like I said, I already had one glass of wine. I'm working on my second, so it should be an interesting show.
Right on. Right on. Well deserved, my friend.
Yeah.
Before we get too heavily into this, because, this is a type of show that's going to absolutely fly by, Joedy. We always got new listeners popping in and out, and people who may not recognize you or the research you do. You spent almost 20 years in the United States Army, and thank you for your service, for everything you did, for putting your life on the line for everybody in North America's freedom, because that's really what it is. And so we really do appreciate you and your fellow veterans around here. There's a lot of love. And how do you go, though, my friend, from being a lifetime military member to looking for Bigfoot and Dogman?
Prior to me going in the military, I was a deputy sheriff. And, being in law enforcement, you hear a lot of strange different stories, and that was like the first time I ever heard of like the beast of Land Between the Lakes. Was there was a seminar going on in Kentucky in 1987, and so I decided to go to it. And I met a lot of different law enforcement officers from around Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and we went out to the bar afterwards, and we're sitting there talking, just, telling different stories. And, one of them told a story of LBL. And that's how I really got into, to the cryptid stuff. I've always had an interest in it. Okay. But when it comes to the cryptid stuff, that's where it is. 'Cause I've been looking into that case for almost 31 years, and it's just something that I've always been interested in. I think that when I finally really know I was really in it, when I went and saw The Legend of Boggy Creek for the first time as a kid, and that was cool. So I kind of got into it. I was always into it. But even in the military, you hear interesting things. I mean, when we got to Kuwait, we had to go to Kuwait City to pick all of our equipment up and take it back up to Camp New York. And, all these people were like throwing stuff in, the ocean there, right out, at the harbor there. And, we wonder what's going on. People are watching. Well, there's this sea monster, sea serpent that's around the coast there. And everybody in Kuwait City knows about it, and they feed it. We didn't see it, but a couple other soldiers actually saw it. That's kind of odd stuff that in the military, that when you're in foreign countries, you kind of pick up some of their little habits and, their history and their folklore, and the fact that, a lake sea monster inside of, Kuwait was kind of interesting. So we stayed around, tried to watch it, but, we couldn't see anything. So you run into stuff like that, really interesting stuff.
It's something that, and I'm one of the many out there, Joedy, who has never been off of this continent. But it's amazing how when you go to countries like Kuwait and hear about the sea monster, or you go to different countries in Europe where they are having interesting effects, or anywhere in the world, really. Mm-hmm. That it's all just seemingly go with the flow, just part of their culture. That's what they do. I mean, they accept it that it is what it is. Very few people in most of the countries really investigating these sea serpents or these cryptid-type creatures. Yet here in North America and other places that are, I'm going to say, more civilized, we seem to have a little bit more of an inquisitiveness towards finding out what these creatures are.
Yeah, the thing of it is like in Europe, like Germany, there's been a lot of stories of, a Bigfoot or even, a Dogman type creature there. The Philippines was another place that was kind of interesting, where, there's a cryptid that's running around in the Philippines that's kind of similar between like a giant ground sloth almost, but it's more, wicked. It's more dangerous. It moves fast and stuff, and it goes into the villages and, apparently kills people in the villages there and, take their food and things like that. And it's about 12 feet, and it's able to move pretty fast. And this is a creature that's not indigenous to, the islands, So that's interesting because, like I said, when you're in a foreign country, you hear about a lot of these different things. Africa was another place where they talked about a creature. The area we were at, talked about a creature that they knew it wasn't an ape, gorilla. They knew it wasn't human, but it was some type of hairy hominoid. Which they called it X, So I mean, it's interesting, but to them, it's something that's always been there. They don't go ooh and ah about it. They know not to go into certain areas. They know, the how this thing is, and they leave it alone. It leaves them alone, and so it's no big deal. But when we get something like a Dogman sighting or a Bigfoot sighting or a Mothman sighting, I mean, we get all excited about it, even though it's something that's always been here. But it was always kept like a secret, like a family type thing, within the families, the stories. But we don't sit there and like as a village, tell these stories to the village like they do in other countries where people grow up on this stuff, and it's no big deal to them. Yeah.
Why do you think that so many people find it no big deal? I mean, we've seen that in Africa with a lot of the strange creatures that come out of the woodworks there in the jungles there. We've seen it in Thailand and the Eastern Asian cultures where they seem to have a ton of strange creatures. Bob in the chat room brings up the aswang, and there's other creatures as well that go along. Joedy, why is it? Because maybe we are just too inquisitive and we are too scientific that we need to try and break this down a little bit more to figure out whether or not they are actually real?
No, see, the Western world is I'm trying to think the right word. We're too closed. Okay, to kind of go off subject a little bit, you take Europe. Okay, nudity and all that stuff is very well open there. I mean, it's nothing to be watching TV and see a commercial, of a woman washing herself in the shower and you see her breasts in Europe. It's nothing. I mean, kids don't go giggling and covering their mouth, or you're standing in line to go, check out at a store and you see like a Cosmopolitan where they actually show the breast. There's pools over there where, women don't wear tops and, the children run around naked. But that's Europe, and it's not a taboo thing, because their society's open. So that's here in the Western world. When I say Western world, I say U.S. and Canada. I mean, we're closed when it comes to stuff like that. And it comes with the cryptids also. We're closed about it. We don't communicate with one another. We don't open up about it. and that's part of the problem. We're still young. We're babies compared to Europe, and they're adults. And things it takes time, and as time goes on, we'll open up more about it. But that's the whole reason, because we're a closed society. North America is.
So as we go on throughout North America and the sightings continue to come through left, right, and center every single year, what makes a good sighting that is worth investigating and what doesn't, Joedy? Because I'm sure there are people out there who just aren't sure what to do or what to say or who even to report to if they have any type of strange cryptid encounter.
Well, the thing of it is, it's hard to determine, what's a good sighting and what's not. Obviously, if it's, something that happened in the last few hours, last few days, last few weeks, those are good sightings. Something that happened 5 years ago, you take the report and you check and see if there's any other activity in the area worth going out. And that's the way we look at it. You go with signing with a Class A, Class B, and a Class C. Class C is being, years from that sighting. Class B will be within, a 6 month to 8 month period. And a Class A is something that just, happened just recently. And it's a really good sighting. What I look at it is, you see all these different stuff on, Facebook and YouTube and stuff. And every time you see a Bigfoot or something like that, it's always within the brush. You don't see a good view of him. The perfect one is where he's on the other side of the brush where he's facing you. Same thing with the Dogman. The best Dogman sighting and report would be something that is walking on all fours. He's on two legs, goes all fours, and goes back on two legs. Those are real good sightings, because that shows that there's something definitely to this thing where it is able to go bipedal, all the way down to all fours and moving. Those are the best ones to get, but those are far and in between, because every time someone gets her sighting in, it's always at a distance, so they really don't get a really good view of what it is that they're seeing, because there's all this brush in the way, or it's too far in a distance, so they can only determine color and size, and that's part of the problem. We do get the ones that were very up close, very good, like the Joedy redwood forest. That was one of probably the best ones we have ever had, and it's a real interesting story. The guy's out walking in the woods. He does it all the time. He sees two other people off to his left, and he keeps moving. They stopped at where the trees were, and then he hears a scream. So he runs back to the area where the two individuals were. He doesn't see them, but he sees this canine standing on two legs. And he snaps a picture of it with his cell phone, and we have a picture of it, on our website. And it's about 40 yards, but it's a blur because the guy's scared and he's shaking, when he takes his picture. But we have, like on our team, we have a person that's on MUFON's star team. So she has all this filtering system that she can look at the photo, the original photo, and tell what type of camera or phone took it, the distance, the time, everything. Can determine what's in that picture, if it's real or if it was put in there. And that picture, and we have the stats that that's on the website below the picture, and it tells you what type of phone he took it on, the time that he took it, location, all that stuff. It shows everything. So whatever this guy saw was definitely there, 100% there. Now, what happened to the two other people, no one knows, because he didn't go back to check. He took the picture and he hauled ass. So we don't know if this thing allegedly attacked the two people that were there, or if they got scared and they ran it in another direction. We just don't know.
When it comes to these types of sightings, Joedy, and, there are a bunch of fakers. Bob in the chat room here, and hi, Bob, if I know you're listening from your residence. Bob is our voiceover guy who late last year became paralyzed. So we always like to show Bob the love on this show, and Bob, we love you lots. But Bob is asking, well, why do you think then that there really hasn't been any type of, we're going to use the word conclusive video footage since Patterson-Gimlin?
Yeah, part of the problem is, things can be faked, that technology. Now, I'll give you an example. Is there stuff out there? Yes, I know there's stuff out there that people are holding on to. I remember, this was back in 92 or 93, that I met this couple that was on a honeymoon, their honeymoon. And this was back in the early 70s. And they had an old, 16 millimeter camera. And they showed me the film. And in the film, you see them, they're in the car. She's, filming him, and he's making faces, just love stuff people do when they're newlyweds. So he goes over railroad tracks, right? And he's acting like the car, is stalling. And he's like, and she's filming. And there's this Bigfoot walking down the tracks. And you see this thing clear as day. I mean, it makes this thing made the Patterson film look something like Disney. And you saw the back of it, and it stops, and it looks at him, and it walks on. And, she's, you hear her tell him, look around, and finally looks around, sees it, and boom, they hauled. And they wouldn't give me the film. They didn't want to show anybody. They didn't want to be ridiculed for it. But this was like the best piece of evidence I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I offered them a lot of money for it, and I said, I don't have to tell anybody where they got it from. And it's like, well, the kids are going to get it, and we'll leave it up to the kids. And I'm sitting in their living room, and they have it on a projector with the screen, and they show it. I mean, it's just, it was beautiful. It was like the best Bigfoot I've ever seen. And there's like I said, there was no way that this thing was faked. This thing was legitimate. And it was, all it was doing was just walking down the tracks, and he just happened to go over the tracks. If he probably was, 5 minutes sooner, they would have hit it, And the area they were in was a very rural area, so there weren't a whole lot of people around, So, and there were hills, and you can see where the tracks, was going with the hill on one side and tree brush on the other side that was basically, covering the tracks from the road and things. And I mean, it was the best I've ever seen. And the thing of it is, there's stuff out there like that. It's just people don't want to be judged. They don't want to be called a liar. They don't want to be called a faker. That's the truth of it. We're working with a guy, right now in Ohio that's got some really good audio. He showed us one piece of good video. He showed us some really good photographs, that he took. This stuff is good stuff, and he's got better stuff, but he's trying to gain our trust before he shows us everything, and that's what I'm saying. People have the stuff. Why they're not, letting it out is simply because they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be laughed at. They don't want to be looked at as a nut.
And that's the big one, isn't it? It isn't so much about releasing the footage as it is about the reputation that now comes along with it.
Exactly, because the thing of it is, you look 20 years ago, we didn't have computers and all that stuff, so no one really cared. There was no way of spreading your name in mud all over the place like it is now. Social media has got to the point. I mean, you can say anything negative about anybody, and it can end up in 10,000 people's, direction, and there's no way of stopping it. So you have 10,000 people already judging you for something that one idiot said that made up. And that's part. And like I said, that's part of the problem.
It has become a very cutthroat type industry, if we can call it an industry, in the research and everything. Do you think, I look at it, Joedy, that, some people just need to calm the hell down.
I'm going to tell you what, I've not, I mean, there's the field, I left the field of Bigfoot, okay, to do the Dogman research because it's a clique. It's an absolute clique. Here in Ohio, we have the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, okay? And it's ran by an individual who's in the BFRO. And if you're not a friend of his or if you're not a member of the BFRO, you're not going to speak at that conference. And that's crazy. There's what? Four Bigfoot researchers in Ohio, and not one has ever spoke at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. Because they don't want them. Because they're not part of the clique. They're not part of the inner circle. And that's how this whole thing is going. It's like CryptidCon. It's this new cryptid convention that's out. And, they got a lot of money backing. But the problem is, if you're not in that inner circle, you're not going to speak. And if they feel that, you're going to be an issue with one of their people, you're still not going to speak. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. These problem with these conferences are they have the same people year after year after year talking about the same bullshit that they talked about 3-4 conferences ago. The whole idea of these conferences, it's for research. It's for putting out evidence. It doesn't care who puts it out. It doesn't care if it's the guy that started 2 days ago who's a nobody compared to somebody, who had a TV show and everybody knows. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. The whole point of it is it's to get the information out, to get the people to see what's going on, to get the people to learn about what is going on. And that's what the problem is. It's clicks and it's the buddy system, and that's what the problem is. And that's why you have all this fighting going on with everybody in the field, because it's just crazy crap. I mean, I applied for CryptidCon to speak at CryptidCon this year. I had to fill an application out, and I had to give 2 personal references. Okay, and one of the personal references I put down was you. And Wendy from she did the Midnight in the Desert, Kingdom of Nine. I put her down because I was on her show. Did they ever contact you about that? No, they didn't, because the thing of it is, that's their way of not putting people in their conference who they don't want there. There's not one speaker that's speaking at CryptidCon this year that had to fill an application out to speak. And I mean, it's a good conference. I mean, it's a beautiful conference. It's something that we need. But my God, let people share information, because if they don't start letting people share other than their friends, no information is going to get out. Because I'm telling you, there's people out there right now that's got some really good stuff, and they can't get it shared because no one is giving them the time of day to talk on one of these talk radio shows or even speak at a conference, because they're not part of the clique or part of the inner circle. And that's what the problem is. I mean, I don't care. I'm not in this to go speak at conferences or do radio shows or make money or anything. I do this because I love it. I enjoy doing it, and I love sharing information. But it's just, people are just getting sick and tired of hearing the same crap from the same people year after year after year.
It's funny because Lorian Fenton, who I spoke at her UFO con earlier this year in March, she said to me point blank, she goes, Dave, I loved your speech. I loved everything that you did with it, but I'm telling you right now, you will not be speaking here next year. as much as I would love it. And the main reason is she doesn't want exactly what you just said. And it's very easy. I said, not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. I mean, that's just the way it goes. That's how you keep the research refreshing and new and exciting, by bringing out all of these new type voices.
I had one researcher sit and tell me, because I made a comment, we had a discussion on Facebook, and I made a comment about this, and one researcher says, nobody's going to go to pee. No one is going to go and pay to see nobody. Nobody. Okay, well, then right there I proved my point. It's about the face, and it's about the name, and it's not about the research. Okay, people want to go and hear stories. People want to see evidence. They don't want to see the same crap they saw at the last cryptid show, or the last Bigfoot conference. They want to see new stuff, because whatever they see at these conventions, they've already seen it on Facebook because it was posted there on somebody's page, or it was posted on YouTube. And that's the biggest problem. The thing of it is, it needs new blood. I'm serious. It needs new blood. I've got a lot of friends who's had TV shows, who is really big in the cryptid field. But you know what? It's time for them to go and bring new people in, because we're not getting nowhere. It's just going in a circle instead of going in a straight line going forward. It keeps going in a circle.
Speaking of that circle, I think that's an important topic to get to. How do you improve research? The technology is there. The attitude with a lot of people is there. I think people are becoming more open-minded than they were even 6 months ago, Joedy.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're thinking all sorts of aspects rather than trying to remain closed-minded on one specific topic or another. How do you improve this field in research when you're dealing with something that is relatively unprovable?
Well, the thing of it is, you have to be skeptic. That's the first thing. You have to be skeptic. And I hate skeptics, okay? I really do. Because there's no way, you can have all the physical evidence in the world, and they still are not going to accept it. But on the other hand, with that being said, you have to be a skeptic in the field too. You just can't believe everything you find that's what it is. My motto is that the way I do things, if I find a piece of evidence or something from a witness, I have to look at it as, let's say there's a Bigfoot court or a Dogman court. Could I persuade the jury with the information that I've got? If I feel I couldn't do that, then I don't put it out. Because if I can't persuade it, then I can't persuade you. And that's the way you have to look at it as a researcher, but you have to be very open-minded, and you have to, when you talk to a witness, you have, and I hate saying it this way, but you have to have that, don't bullshit a bullshit artist attitude, because human testimony doesn't mean crap in this field. It doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't. It's not even circumstantial evidence. Because most of the stories you get are either secondhand or thirdhand. Very seldom you get firsthand stories. And, if it's a firsthand story, it's something that happened a long time ago, and people's recollection, changes throughout the year. Because human nature, people like to embellish when they tell a story. They'll tell the story one time, and then when they tell the story, it's the same story, but something else was added in. And that's just human nature, of doing it, because it's still the truth that they're telling, but they just used a more of a fancier word, and that's embellishing it. Or they said instead of, 10 feet, 12 feet, something to that effect. But that's just how things are, and there's not any way you can improve it other than, just, take it as it is. That's the only way you can do it. When it comes to equipment, equipment's always going to improve, your chances of finding something. But the best equipment is your head, and the way you sit there and you operate out in the field. You got, safety first. That's the thing. Safety first. Safety before research. And a lot of people don't understand that. When you go out to the field, if you're going for one day, you pack enough food and water for 3 days because, crap happens. And that's how you improve yourself. When you get yourself disciplined, then you're able to discipline your research.
And that's a big one, is disciplining your own research and keeping open-minded about everything in regards to the topic. So when you go into an investigation, or you have someone new coming on in, Joedy, who wants to investigate these topics, how do you convince them to keep a skeptical mind but remain open-minded at the same time? Because for a lot of people, that's a difficult task.
It is, and I just tell them, like our researchers, use your better judgment. You can normally tell if someone's pulling something on you. And I always tell my people, if you keep eye contact with the witness, that witness is going to keep eye contact with you. Okay? And and this is one thing I learned in law enforcement. Okay? It doesn't matter if you keep eye contact with someone, you look off to the left or look off to the right. It doesn't mean that you're lying. Okay? Some people just cannot stare other people in the eyes for multiple reasons. Okay? Because when you stare someone in the eye, it's a personal thing. Okay? And some people feel that's an invasion on their personal, self. Women, give you an example. I read this, when some women feel if you stare them in the eye and you're talking to them, that you're undressing them, you're thinking things about them because you're directly looking at them in the eye. And people get uncomfortable about that. So I tell my researchers, people want to say, don't take it as anything if they break eye contact with you, because some people just are not comfortable looking you in the eye. So just listen to the tone of their voice. Just listen, look at their attitude, look at their hand movements. There are just certain ways you can tell people. But I mean, everybody's been taken one time or another. But, don't be disrespectful. Just take it for what it is. Take the report and try to do fact check on it. That's the only thing you can do.
Joedy, I want to start getting into the story that we were talking about the last time you were on the air. And I'm going to let you break this down. You were speaking at a conference where you decided to head into the lounge in the hotel where the conference was being held. And you met a gentleman in there, a fellow military veteran. And I would love for you to take it from there to refresh our audience about this intriguing story regarding some serious play in the Dogman phenomena.
Okay, this was a few years ago. I spoke at a paranormal conference. They needed a cryptid guy there for it, so I spoke at it. After the conference, everybody went over to the bar restaurant to get something to eat after the conference and sit around and just talk. I went to the bar to get something to drink. There was a guy sitting at the bar, and he just asked me, what's going on? What's going on at the hotel? There's a lot of people going on. So I told him it was a paranormal conference, and he, like ghosts and things. And I said, yeah. And he goes, are you a ghost hunter? And I'm like, no, I do cryptid stuff. And he, asked what I would, the cryptid stuff I was doing. I told him I talked about Bigfoot and Dogman. And he said, Dogman. And I explained to him what Dogman was. And we're just having a conversation about cryptids. The guy was military. I knew he was military by the way his stature was, by the way his haircut was, just the way he was talking, tattoos, things like that. And we, like I said, just having a conversation, and then, he tells me this story, that he was part of a special operations team, and there was a species of alien that was new as a new contact to us. And they had a few of them being held in a facility in South America because they were extremely dangerous. And the species of alien was a canine type species, very aggressive. And that they wore some type of body armor that was similar to like the Halo stuff, is what he said. And I didn't know what he was talking, because I don't play video games, so I had no idea what he was talking about. So he's talking how they had to go. These things were able to get out of the facility. They killed the people in the facility. They got out, and they were just causing chaos, through this village that was close by. So they had to go down and take care of the situation, and they ended up killing them off. But he said they had special weapons, to kill these things, and that when they killed them, they made a very god awful scream, when they were killed. But he said they had no common sense at things like if you would fire at them, if there was a building or an object that they could hide next to, they didn't do it. They just stood in a line of fire. And, they took care of the situation. And I thought it was kind of an interesting story, but I just didn't really think too much in it. And, I remember doing a conference where Linda Godfrey was at, and I mentioned it to her, and, she mentioned that she heard a story similar from someone different, about that. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It kind of validated, what this guy was saying. And, I talked to you on the last show, I talked about this. And then I ended up getting a message from a guy who was, former U.S. Army. He was a Ranger, and they were in Afghanistan, and they were looking for the insurgents there on a mission in the Kandahar Valley. And everybody knows the name Kandahar Valley because there's a lot of weird stuff that comes out of Kandahar, with the Kandahar Giants and things like that. There was a U.S. Special Forces team that came up missing, and then they sent another team out looking for them, and they found out this giant, end up killing them and eating them, and they end up, finding it and killing it, and it was brought back to the States, and it was supposed to have like 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes, 12 feet, 15 feet, something like that. And he said, we talked about that because he said everybody who was in Kandahar knew about the Kandahar Giants. So it was nothing new. So they're out on the mission, and they end up breaking up into twos. And he said they came over the hillside, and they were able to see at first, before they came over, let me jump back here. They heard a scream, and when they were able to come over the hillside, they saw 2 insurgents that were already dead, and one that was standing there, and there were these 2 canine type creatures wearing body armor, and he even said the same thing. They were like the Halo costume, but one of them had a sword, and the sword was like a sickle, like a pharaoh's sword, an Egyptian type sword. And he said they used that, and they killed the insurgent with it. And they had their weapons, but they didn't use the weapons. And he said they were like, all of a sudden they stopped and they start sniffing in the air. And then one of them like put his arm out to kind of hit the other one to move on, and they moved on. And that was his story. And, now, I mean, the guy works as a military contractor, and, he said, we didn't even report the story, to anybody, but what's so interesting about that story was the sword. And the first story that I heard, the guy even talked about the swords. And I never told anybody about that because that was the only part of the story, of the first story, that I felt was, oh, wow, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, they got these, Scorpion King swords and stuff, and but he said they had them, but they were like attached to their backs, but they never used them. But and I had two stories now about canine type creatures, alien type creatures that were in body armor that had these swords. And so I did some research about the sword, and then I was finding a lot of pictures of Anubis, where Anubis had this sword. And Anubis is the dog, the dog-headed god. And I thought that was kind of different because I was finding all these different pictures of like Anubis wearing almost like a body armor with the swords. And I was like, maybe, the Egyptians knew something about these species of aliens, and they left, and it's just recently coming back. And then I get this guy contacting me who was a retired captain, Air Force, and he's telling me, there's 23 different species of aliens. The canines are the newest species. They're highly aggressive. We know about them. They've only come in small groups here. They come to hunt. They'll come and take their armor off and disguise themselves along with wolves, and they do their hunting and they leave. He said kind of like the Predator, and I mean, but you get stuff like that and you have to take it for a grain of salt because there's no verifying of the story, and some of these people who say they're military and they telling you these stories. I mean, that's all you can do is take it. You get stuff like that. You get stuff like that all the time. And, so you don't know what to believe. But I do know MUFON is very interested in the Dogman phenomenon because they truly believe that it is some type of alien species, which it very well could be. But it's interesting that you have something like MUFON that's very interested in the subject of Dogman. And we work with MUFON on this because MUFON is starting a cryptid division to look into this stuff. So there's something to it, but like I said, these stories, that's all they are. They're stories, and you can't verify them. You can't fact check them. All you can do is just absorb the story and tell it if someone wants to hear it. And Bigfoot researchers get this stuff all the time too. Where they get Bigfoot stories. I spent 20 years in the Army. Okay, I've been to a lot of places. I've seen a lot of different things. Okay, in my time in the Army. Okay, one thing I can tell you about the United States Army. The United States Army is not going to get called out. I'm sorry. They are not going to get called out because of cryptids, because of Bigfoot and Dogman and all this other stuff. They're not. That's not the role of the United States military. Government agencies I'm sure they have people that do that may wear military uniforms or look military, but they're not going to do it because we have a law saying that the United States military cannot operate, in a combat role inside the United States. It's illegal. They can't do it. So they can't send the military out to do this. So they would, they have special units for that. They'll use military equipment military helicopters. They'll use,
Right.
military vehicles and things like that. But they're not military. They're either contract security personnel by the, Department of Defense, or they're prior military.
Joedy,
You
is
know?
that what happened at Mount St. Helens back in 1980, where there were alleged eyewitnesses of these Chinook helicopters coming in and picking up scores of bodies of Sasquatch, whether they were dead or alive? There was reports that this was happening. Is that what you're talking about here?
No, I'm just talking about in general. I mean, I know about that. And here's the story I heard about that, okay, which I kind of find odd. Okay, they were using infrared and thermal imaging to pick up body heat, okay, from the ash, okay, which if it's hot ash, you're not going to get body heat, okay? It just ain't going to happen. Everything's going to show up red, okay? A Chinook is a helicopter that was designed to crash, okay? No one wants to ride in a Chinook. Okay, if the military is going to use something, they're going to use like a Navy Sea Stallion or something to that effect. Now, the new Chinooks that they have out now, they're a lot better than the ones we had when we were in the Army. But a Sea Stallion, it's a better helicopter to pick up a lot more stuff, and it's a lot larger. And there's two different sizes of it. But that's some of the stories. They were picking up these bodies. But if every animal, when Mount St. Helens blew, when all these animals were hauling ass out of there days, weeks before Mount St. Helens blew, Bigfoot was doing the same thing. Okay? Because they noticed right before Mount St. Helens blew, the animals were just clearing the forest. I mean, they were coming into residential areas. They were coming into the towns. I mean, they were leaving the area. So if they were doing it, Bigfoot was doing it. Maybe there might have been a couple of them that stayed behind and that were killed. Who knows? But, all it takes is one person to say one thing about, I saw a helicopter pick up bodies of Bigfoot, and it spreads like a wildfire. There's no proof to that. But like I said, the military just isn't. That's not their job. They have their own. The government agencies probably have their own, equipment and stuff and personnel that handles that. But you have to sit there and think, why would the government be interested in Bigfoot? Okay, like they are, keeping it quiet like UFOs. Dogman, I can see, because Dogman's like an apex predator. Okay, that I think is different. Bigfoot is not. I don't think is an apex predator. All he is another species of humanoid. Okay, and maybe, just maybe, if they prove that there's another human species, then that's going to screw religion, which I don't think it's going to screw religion at all. Hell, the Vatican's looking for aliens. So obviously Christianity's not going to fall apart. Okay, if the Vatican is out looking for aliens with their observatories. Okay, so the problem is the human species can't coexist with itself, let alone another human species. Okay, so if we have Bigfoot and they say Bigfoot exists, well, you know what? They have to give a designated area for them to stay in. That means the logging stops. If logging stops, people lose their jobs, people lose their home, they lose the way of life. And it's just not going to happen. And there's too much money.
I hate to cut you off there, but I know up here right now, I was just actually tipped off recently to a logging crew that's a little freaked out because leading up their road, their gravel road to where they are now cutting, they have been finding paths of prints, 15, 16, 17 inches that are, fresh. Mm-hmm. And this scares people. And I know the loggers up here do not want to talk about it because of, as you said, this could lead to them losing their jobs.
Exactly. And there's a show that was on the History Channel called American Loggers or something like that, where they showed, they go and doing logging. And some of them guys even said they were told by the History Channel, don't mention Bigfoot sightings. And these guys are having them, making that show, not to mention it. I don't know. I just can't wrap my head around what's the big issue is. I mean, it's the same. And I mentioned this last show, where if aliens, or if the president gets on TV and says, aliens exist, they've been watching us, but we'll protect you. You're gonna wake up the next morning. You're gonna have breakfast with your kids. You're gonna take your kids to school. You're gonna still go to work. I mean, your life's not gonna end. You're not gonna go out and buy a bunch of guns and ammunition,
right?
And set your house at and make a fort out of it. It's just not going to happen. Life's going to go on because deep in your mind, you already knew this stuff existed.
Exactly. Joedy, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we're going to continue the talk of Bigfoot and Dogman with Joedy Cook tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We will be back with more of the cryptid talk right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Beamer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Rick Kirkby joins us from the United Kingdom to talk ghosts, EVPs, and all the paranormal we can handle. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, you can check out our archives for free. Subscribe to our channel. It's at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Onirogmophobia. Onirogmophobia is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets your password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, our website is going to be going through some changes in the near future, but it is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Tonight we are talking with Joedy Cook. We are talking about Bigfoot. We're talking Dogman. All sorts of heavy discussion about the cryptid world. Joedy, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, right before the break, Joedy, you were getting into some serious discussion about these massive armored-wearing Dogman creatures that have been seen in war zones across the world. This is just incredible to hear this, and I know you got a couple of emails and have had discussions with soldiers who have seen them, thanks to, other people and other veterans listening to this show. It just amazes me that all of these reports, Joedy, seem the same. About a 7-8 foot creature and in armor?
When it comes to the Dogman stuff, the three stories that I've gotten were all the same. They are all described as a wolf, wearing, like a body armor type outfit. And, they had weapons, they had the swords and things, but they seem to be in hostile areas, I guess, but I mean, even like on the Bigfoot stuff, I mean, there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings on military bases. I talked to an MP one time, and this was down at Fort Benning, Georgia. They got a call of someone looking in windows in a housing area, and there was a female officer and a male officer, and they were looking in the area, and then they come around the side of the house, and they hear a baby crying inside the house. And as they're coming around the side of the house, they see a Bigfoot looking in the window, and the Bigfoot was rubbing up and down the side of the house. And the male officer was getting ready to pull his revolver, and the female officer said, "Stop. It's not doing anything. It's trying to calm the baby down." And I mean, that was instinct from a female, seeing what this female Sasquatch or male Sasquatch was doing. And I thought that was an interesting story, that a female was able to pick that up, and, the male, but his idea was, pull the gun out and shoot it, but, you get stories like that all the time, on military installations there. I mean, the FBI has like 2,000 classified documents on Bigfoot. Okay, I know this for a fact because I wrote them under the Freedom of Information Act. And I got like 19 pieces of garbage paper that was half blacked out, just talking about stupid stuff. And, I wrote the FBI back on a repeal about it, and they sent me a letter saying, if you have any questions, contact this, special agent. So I called, wanted to find out what was going on. And, the FBI then was good compared to they are now. But this guy was really good. He goes, let me explain this to you so, you can understand on our side. He goes, when we have documentation on Bigfoot that is classified, it doesn't mean that we're out looking for Bigfoot. What it means is that FBI agents are trained to be very thorough when they do their paperwork. They document everything. So they could have been an investigation that was going on, and an agent saw a Bigfoot and he put it in his document. Okay, it might be an ongoing investigation. They might be protecting the identity of the officers. It could be on government property that most citizens don't know about. That's the reason why it's classified, not because of Bigfoot itself. Which made sense, to me. And I'm sure stuff like that happens all the time. Now, I've talked to people who were former FBI agents that ran into them. They said, yeah, we were out checking a property on something because we had a call that, this was happening over there, and they were doing what they were doing, and they ran into one, and they put it in their report. There's a report. I'm trying to think. It was maybe 1960, 69 or 70 on one of the Apollo missions. When the Apollo's rockets was going off, I think it might have been the second one, that something was seen going in that area. So they sent out a Air Force security team, and it was a Bigfoot that was coming close to where the rocket was going to be launched, and they ended up killing it. And there's supposed to be an FBI government report on that particular thing. Now, there was a case in, I think it was probably 1968, 69, of a little boy that was missing down in the Smoky Mountains. I'm trying to think the child's name at the top of my head, but anyhow, there was this family that was there at the Smoky Mountains, and there was another family that was there camped next to him. So the children were playing. So the one other family's children came back without the little boy. The little boy's father asked him, "Where's my son?" And they said, "We don't know. He just walked off." So he went looking for him, couldn't find him. They called the Rangers in. The Rangers do a search and rescue for the kid. So the FBI's called in because it's a missing child. So the FBI telling the parents, "We'll, find your child. We'll do the best we can, blah, 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 blah." And a couple of days go by, and they don't find the child. So what happens is that the parents find out, well, there was another family that was out there that was hiking, and they reported seeing a Bigfoot with a child on its shoulder running through the woods. Well, that story got to the FBI, but the FBI never told the people, the child's parents about that. So now the parents are finding out about it, and they're upset. And the FBI is trying to tell them, well, it had nothing to do with the case. A monster running through the woods with the kids. Who's going to believe it? So the story goes that U.S. Special Forces were brought in to go on a search and rescue mission looking for this kid. Okay, I don't know about that, because there again, military's not authorized operation on U.S. soil. Okay, so maybe they brought Special Forces in because they're trained, to do search and rescue in an environment like that. But apparently these guys were pretty locked and loaded and, full battle rattle, going out, and they were out for a week. And the boy, still hasn't been found. There's still like a $250,000 information to the whereabouts of the child. Now, the FBI agent that was involved in that case committed suicide. So this whole case is just it's really, really weird.
There are a lot of cases like that. David Paulides speaks a lot about these cases, although he never really gives up the fact that he thinks it is Sasquatch or somebody kidnapping people, especially children. Yeah. Do you believe, or what do you think is actually happening with these children once they are snatched by a Bigfoot? Do you think they are being killed? Do you think they are being, maybe brought up in a Bigfoot world? Maybe it's a mother Bigfoot who lost her own child? What do you think is happening?
I'm not sure. That child's name is his name is Dennis Martin. So if you do the disappearance of Dennis Martin, that kind of tells you the whole story that went on. It happened in 1969. It's hard saying when you look at Native American culture. The Native Americans said they're cannibals. Okay, now on my side of this country, one of the Indian tribes here are the Cherokee. Okay, and we had the Shawnee. Now the Cherokee, they have a dance that's called the booger dance. And what this dance is, it's a male or female, wild man or wild woman of the woods, dancing in a circle with the children. And how the story goes, if the children don't pay attention to their parents, do their chores, do what they're supposed to be doing, the booger is going to get them in the middle of the night and take them away and eat them. Okay, so as the white man is going further west, they're picking up all these Native American folklore. And that's where we get the boogeyman from. You know, as a kid, you know, if you don't go to sleep, the boogeyman's going to get you. Well, what they're talking about is the booger, which is a Bigfoot. Okay, so that's part of the culture there. Now, Native Americans always thought that. Are they cannibals? When I was in British Columbia, I think the Quilu Indian tribe, if I pronounced it right, starts with a K. You know, they were saying that they're cannibals. They will eat you. These are 12-foot giants. You go looking for them, you're not coming back because they will eat you. So they got to be something to it. If they're taking these kids, you know, maybe they are eating them or eating adults or, you know, eating the people for whatever purpose. Now, I got this story out of Land Between the Lakes. Now, Land Between the Lakes is a neat place because all your Dogman sightings are north of 22 and all your Bigfoot sightings are in south of 22. But they've been sightings of a very large, aggressive Bigfoot in the north they call the Old Man. And people see him a lot, and he's a big fella, and he's not afraid of anything. But in one particular case, a witness said he had two females with him that were like really human looking, like they were part human woman and part Bigfoot. He said they looked really human. Their bodies, they had hair on them, but their body, their stature, their looks, the way the hair on their head was, and because they didn't look anything like the male Bigfoot. And he felt that, because there is missing people that came in LBL, that maybe he mated with them and they died giving birth to, these hominids, these half Bigfoot, half human. It could happen. There's stories in Native American culture where they talk about where they mated, with females. Because if it's a hybrid, or if it's a human species, I'm sure it could, they could mate. It's just hard saying. I mean, just all the I don't know. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, I want to say something real quick because a lot of people are probably wondering why I say a no a lot. Okay, I was in Iraq. I got a spinal cord injury and head trauma, so I went through a lot of speech. Okay, and there are certain words that kind of stuck with me, like I know, okay, things like that. So I don't want them to think that I stutter or anything like that. It's just, from my rehabilitation, it's just things that stayed with me. So that's why I say it a lot. Okay, so I just wanted to...
Didn't even notice. Not a problem. I got a question from Jason coming in here, Joedy, for you. He is saying, Joedy, have you heard of any government contractors killing dogmen from helicopter teams?
Oh, my God. I get stories. I'm sorry, I need something. I get stories all the time, where people are seeing military coming in helicopters or vehicles, and they have like some type of a sound device that like high pitch for like animals, dogs and things. I've heard stories like that. LBL is a really good place you get stories about military operations going on, but people have to understand Fort Campbell, Kentucky is right there, and Fort Campbell uses Land Between the Lakes all the time for military training because it's a national park, so they're allowed to do it. So I mean, it's hard saying. You get these stories where people, say that, military, and like I said, it's not military. They are either contract security force by a certain agency or prior military people. But, the military talks, okay? The military is very devoted to the Constitution of the United States and to the people, okay? So the military, if they're operating in a way that they shouldn't, they're going to say something, okay? And that's how military people are. You will hear stories about that. When, you don't hear stories about people, in helicopters firing down a dogman. You hear about people who were assigned to these divisions that are actually doing it. And that's where it goes back to the whole thing. Is Dogman a threat to society? And they have to go out and try to find this thing, look at this thing. Is he an alien species? It's something because, there's some type of paramilitary organizations out there looking for these things. I've talked to a lot of people that swears that the military or prior military is out there doing something, looking for these things. So, I think it is. I think that there's a reason why. I try not to look at a UFO, connection to Dogman, but it's hard. It's hard not to look at that because there's just so much evidence that's saying that there's a really good possibility that this thing may be extraterrestrial. Not so much a flesh and blood type creature, but extraterrestrial. So it's hard. It's really hard to decide.
It's a matter of keeping the mind open, though, isn't it? Because there are a number of people in this research field who refuse to even look at the fact that it could be extraterrestrial, it could be homegrown. We really don't know.
No.
I mean, for all we know, it's a science experiment gone bad at Montauk.
Right. I mean, I did UFO research years before I did cryptid. And when I got to doing the Bigfoot stuff, I wouldn't touch, I don't care what evidence you had, I wouldn't touch a Bigfoot sighting that had a UFO connection to it. Okay? I just don't believe that Bigfoot is an alien. The way people say, well, I seen him come out of the ships. Well, you know what? He was probably abducted. That's why you saw him come out of the ship, because they were either using him for a purpose or he was being abducted and experimented on just like the humans. Okay? And as an American citizen and as, a prior military person, I can honestly say I would not put it past the United States government or any other government to be in contact with an extraterrestrial species and say, you can abduct who you want, do what experiments you want, just don't go overboard on it in exchange for technology. I can see that happening. I can see our governments doing it. They're not pure governments, man. I'm telling you, they know what's going on, and I can honestly see them, doing this, to your own people just to advance military technology. It's just, it's mind-boggling the way the more you think about it, and then on the other hand, when you like aliens, why are aliens here? And why are they abducting people and doing experiments? Are aliens us in the future, and they're trying to save the species by coming back, taking our DNA to try to save the species? Anything's possible. Anything's possible.
That's very true. Now, Jason has another question for you. When we were talking about what was happening in South America, he was asking if that was in Venezuela.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. He didn't say. He just told me it was a South American country. He didn't tell me what country it was. And, you know, maybe he didn't want to tell me what country it was for security reasons. But he didn't say, you know, is there something going on in Venezuela that's Dogman related? You know, I mean, that's interesting to know.
Do you think then that when it comes to these kill squads regarding Dogman, are they just focusing on Dogman from what you've heard, or are they also attacking, you know, sightings where Bigfoot is seen?
The stories that we're getting, you know, is basically they're looking for Dogman. You know, in a lot of these areas, Bigfoot's not even there. And what's weird, in some of these areas where these military personnel / contractors are looking for Dogman, is where attacks are actually taking place on animals. Give an example. We had 2 locations, you know, one here in Ohio, one down in Tennessee, where this Dogman was going in and killing dogs in kennels. To give an example, this one guy, he had 8 German Shepherds killed out of 15. And it actually killed the whole litter of pups. And it wasn't eating them, it was just killing them. So was this thing looking at these, you know, these dogs as a threat? You know, or were they just trying to kill off the males to mate with the females? And the same thing was going on with another kennel down in Tennessee. And in both cases, people were seen in military vehicles, helicopters, ghillie suits and stuff out in the field looking for these things. So, I mean, I'm sure, I really believe that somewhere in the United States that some government agency has a facility. Remember that movie, The Iceman Cometh?
Yes.
Where they found that caveman and they thawed him out and they put him in that small environment and they put animals in there for him to hunt, and he had no idea what was going on. That he still felt he was out in regular, you know, the regular world. I really believe that there's facilities like that where there's Dogman and there's Bigfoot, where they'll have a group of Bigfoot that they're studying or a group of Dogman that they're studying in an environment like that, and they'll send in deer or chickens or rabbits or whatever for them to hunt. So where they sit there and think that they're still out and not in some facility. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, you take Montauk, you know, the TV show, you know, Strange Things is based off of that, you know. So it's a strange world, but it's an interesting world because just people thrive on this. People want to be scared. They want to be scared. They don't want to be entertained. They don't want to sit and watch mountain monsters, a bunch of hillbillies running out, shooting guns in the dark, you know. And after they, you know, sit there and tell, you know, they're telling their story, what's going on. I mean, that's entertainment. People don't want that. They want to get scared. They want to know. The thing about Dogman is the thing that goes bump in the night and it bites. And people know that. People see Bigfoot, they see Harry and the Hendersons. Okay? There is not one story that I've ever ran across where a Bigfoot ripped people apart, pulled them out of their cars. There's no stories. The only stories I've ever heard about that came from Native American cultures. Okay? Because they dealt with them differently than we did. Here in Ohio, when the Shawnee were here in Ohio, they called the Bigfoot the Big Blue Giant because his hair was so dark and black, it had a blue tint, and the skin tone was almost blue. So they had battles with these things over land, over food, over them coming and taking their squaws, taking their children. And we have a Native American museum up here that actually has a battle axe that the Shawnee used to fight the Big Blue Giants with. And I have a picture of it in my first book, Bigfoot in Ohio. And there's a picture of it there. And so the Shawnee, they see it as a demon, right? So they have masks, they have little characters of it, but they don't show the white man because they feel the white man's so evil that if the white man sees it, it's going to bring it out. You know, and then all hell's going to break loose. So, you know, every culture dealt with them different than we do. I mean, we're not fighting them on a daily basis over land, over food, you know, over them taking our people like the Native Americans did and the Indian tribes in Canada. You know, if you talk to Native Americans, they always looked at him as another Indian. When they looked at Dogman was more like a Wendigo. He was the demon. He was the devil. So he was looked at totally different, you know, than I think Bigfoot was. But, you know, like I said, they dealt with them differently than we did. So it's I don't know.
So do you?
It's mind-boggling at times.
When we're looking at this creature, then in a supernatural folklore, do you think we are looking at something that is alien or potentially interdimensional? And that comes from Brand New Joe in the SOR chat room.
You know, I'm open-minded. Open-minded about things. You know, before I never was. I never believed in dimensions. I never believed in, you know, the supernatural type things when it came to cryptids. You know, but anything's possible now. I mean, the world we live in is strange, and that's what makes it exciting. Is there a possibility that there's portals that show up and go, you know, where they're able to move through portals? Are they a supernatural type creature? There's stories out there where Bigfoot, you know, goes into that mode where, you know, like the Predator did, where he was able to camouflage himself with the environment. You know, there's stories like that. I've seen pictures on Facebook where people posted, you know, of images that, you know, look like there's something standing there, but it's distorted. And they're saying, well, it's a Bigfoot able to cloak himself. Anything's possible anymore. You know, I'm starting to have a little bit open mind to a lot of this stuff because, like I said, we live in a strange world, and anything is possible. You know, you take the hollow earth theory, which, you know, I read something about that, and I was fascinated with that, the hollow earth theory. You know, that there's another world in our world, and could these cryptids, you know, Bigfoot, Dogman, Mothman, you know, Loveland Frogman, all these other cryptids, could these be cryptids that live in the inner earth and they come out? And that's why we don't see them that much. But if you sit, another interesting case, if you look at a map of the world, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's two longitudes that every single sea serpent sighting or lake monster sighting are within these two. What is the latitude? It goes across, and longitude goes up and down.
Yes.
Okay. There's two latitudes that where all these sightings are within there, all the way around the world. So even, you know, Japan, Turkey, Lake Champlain, Ogopogo, all the way around. You know, so is this the same creature that we're seeing, and they're able to move through caverns underground? and they're passing each other, going from lake to lake, or ocean to ocean. Is it a possibility? Yes, it's a possibility. That's something. These are all the same creatures that we're seeing in different parts of the world, because they fall within the same longitude there where all the lakes are. And could Bigfoot travel? Are they caves? Going from different parts of the country? Yes, because in 1955, the Department of the Army Corps of Engineers. That was the height of the Cold War. So if there was ever a nuclear war, they wanted to see if they were able to get people down underground in caves to survive a nuclear war until there was time for people to come back up. So the Army Corps of Engineers sent groups of people down to all these different cave areas, and they found like parts of Mammoth Cave can go all the way down into Mexico. So when they're going, through these caves and they're going further down, there are reports that they're finding bodies that were buried because in like the sulfur, dirt, and the bodies were preserved because of the salt and the sulfur. And some of them were in really good condition and some of them weren't. And these were humanoid bodies, that were like Bigfoot type creatures. And, they were bringing them back. And that was one story, a guy told me, he was, like 70 years old at the time. And he was telling me he was part of that, and then when, New Orleans, when they had the flood, I had a lot of friends that were in the military, still in the military. I had friends that were with Blackwater that was down there, contractor security team, and they were telling me the reason why they took guns away from the people down there was not to violate the Second Amendment or people killing each other or anything like that. He said what the problem was when the flood water came in and everything was flooded, they were seeing these reptilian type humanoids. And what these reptilian type humanoids were living underground, and they had to come forward because they were being drowned. And God forbid if somebody killed one of these things and it ended up on the 9 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news, then all hell would have broke out. So that was one of the main reasons in getting the guns away from the people. You left them vulnerable, but they couldn't take the chance of these things being killed. And here's the thing. He said they were out on patrol, and they ran into two of them. And he said they looked at them, and they froze. These are the soldiers, that they froze. They couldn't move, they said. Their eyes were able to see, and then as they were moving off, then they were able to get their full function back. But these things were able to, freeze them for the moment to get out of the way. And that was an interesting story. And I mean, I heard that story from like 3 different people from down there, that were there. So anything, like I said, anything is possible. Anything is possible. It's a strange world.
How much do you put into the stock that this dogman-like creature is almost bulletproof? We have heard so many stories come around this show about people shooting at dogman, hitting it. It doesn't seem to flinch. Then there is another group of people, Joedy, who seem to, raise their gun to this creature, but all of a sudden get hit with an overwhelming fear that it'll be worse if they actually shoot at it.
Yeah, well, I talked to a guy that had one in his scope, and this thing saw him, and he had, I think it was a 330 blackout, if I believe that was the caliber, and he knew that if this thing came at him, it would be up on him before he would be able to get a second shot off if he didn't get the first shot on. You know, I talked to a lot of people. Dave Lady, he was on Terror in the Woods, shot one point blank twice with a 357, did nothing. You know, my theory on that is that a dog man, trying to think of the best way to say this, his sternum, I guess, is what the main bone in the rib cage up in front. I think that's what it's called. I might be wrong. I think it's much larger. I think it's spread. It covers the majority of the chest. I think it's very, very thick, like a pit bull skull, where it can take a shot, and it's not going to affect it. It's not going to hit any organs in the chest. And I think that's why when people say they shoot it, and you know, it does nothing. It doesn't move. It doesn't flinch. You know, it just doesn't do anything, because I think that bone is just so thick in their chest, it absorbs the shot. We just got a story up in New York where this guy has property, and there's two of them up there. Okay, so he hears something out in his barn. He goes out to the barn. He has a shotgun with him, so he's looking around the barn. And then up on top of the barn, where all the, you know how they'll keep the hay up on top, and they'll have like the open doors on top where they bring the hay in and put it up, you know, through the pulley. So what he does, he sees two paws hanging off the side, very large canine paws. Well, this thing is up on top, laying down. So he goes to pull the door, the line to open up the door up on top to kind of get a better look through the moonlight. And he said the thing jumped down when he did it. He said he shot it point blank in the chest with buckshot. And he said the flesh was hanging there. And he said this thing ran. Okay? So about a week later, he sees it again. The same creature he shot, because he's able to see where he shot it at in the chest. So it didn't kill it. And the guy, he's had cows missing, other livestock missing, and he packed his stuff and left. He said, I've had it. I'm not living here no more. That scared the hell out of him. You know, so, I mean, we get stories like that all the time where people shoot these things and shot at them, and they do nothing. You know, me personally, I do a headshot. You know, I learned well enough in the Army, you know, you want to kill the person, you do a headshot, you know, or you hit the heart. But with body armor today, it's hard, so that's why you do the headshot. And you do a headshot, you're going to kill it. You know, hit them through the eye. That's the best. That's the best way to do the killing. And so anything's possible with these things, man. It's just, you know, there's something to it. Like I said, I think it's just the bone is just so thick in the chest, it absorbs the shot.
Do you recommend anybody raising a rifle to one of these creatures? Or is it best just to maybe keep your eyes on it and exit slowly?
the thing of it is, it's going to see you before you see it. And, my thing is, observe it. Don't move. You run, you pray. Stand your ground if necessary. If you have a weapon with you, fire, a shot at it. But there again, I talked to a lot of people that said they discharged their weapons at it and it didn't even flinch. So, just stand your ground. If it's coming at you, do a headshot. That, you're going to kill it for sure. But you wound it, you're just going to piss it off, and that's going to be you.
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I want to get to a question from Mike here in regards to Bigfoot. He is asking, do you believe the creature is migratory?
Here's my theory on this, okay? Animals normally don't leave their area unless the food source or the water source is gone. Okay, if the food source is good, they're going to stay. If, they're less human contact, they're going to stay. If the water source is there, they're going to stay. Okay, maybe they migrate at the change of the seasons because, food source and water source and the environment that they feel protected in. So they may migrate that way. I just don't see, Bigfoot leaving the area unless it's absolutely necessary if the environment changed. And I've said this many times, humans are the same way. Humans normally stay and live within 10 miles of where they were born. Okay? And only time you leave your environment is either by financial reasons, a natural disaster happened, your job, or, you just got oats to burn, oats to sow outside. You just got tired of them. But most people stay within 10 miles of where they were born or 20 miles within they were born. They stay in that environment, so I believe that they stay within their environment too. Now, you may have like a rogue male in a grouping that decides he wants to go off and be off on his own and start his own, clan or grouping, so I'm sure it happens. I'm not an expert and there's no experts in this field, but we have to assume that's what they do. They'll stay within their area unless the food source and the water source or the environment changes. Yeah.
I know at our gifting site that we have, there has been absolutely no action whatsoever there since almost before the fires last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to really believe that type of trauma on an area where these creature lives could push them out of the way.
Exactly. I mean, because their environment's destroyed. The food source is gone. The water source is gone. Their housing area is gone. There's nothing there to keep them there. So they're going to move on.
But in this area, though, Joedy, that area where we have it hidden is not touched.
Really?
Now you go a couple miles to the east. Yeah, it was touched. Right? But where we have it, there is absolutely nothing going on. Nothing.
Yeah. How can I say this? Bigfoot, I think he mimics humans a lot. I think I sent you. Did I send you that video of that thing digging in the cemetery?
No.
Okay, here in Ohio, these two young females and their kid, they were one of them was working. The other one was not. She had her child with them. They picked their friend up on her lunch break, and they went to the cemetery to sit and eat. A lot of people do that at this particular cemetery. Well, they're sitting there, and they see this odd creature digging up a grave. So they video it. I mean, this thing's weird looking. I mean, it's really weird looking. And you can tell by the way it's digging, it's got long fingers and claws. Some people say it's a dogman. Some people say it's a Bigfoot. But where the cemetery sits, there's a real heavy wooded area. So the video shows them, real quick of this thing doing this. And it's like, they freak out and they leave. So I'm like, man, I would have got out the car. And, that's me. I would have got out the car and videoed this thing. But this is like the second time I've got a report of a Bigfoot digging in the cemetery. And I got this really good picture that this young girl took. We have this cemetery by where Grant is buried at. And you have to go like up these wooden steps or concrete steps to get to it. And I think the last person that was buried there was in the late 1800s. So there's no one knew they were buried. There would be nobody else to be there putting flowers on the grave. So she goes up there, and she went up there just to take pictures of the cemetery in fall. So she sees this large ape, she said, digging in the ground. So she snaps a picture of it, and she hauls. So I got this picture, and I blew it up, and you can see the head, you can see the ear really well, you can see the arm. The arm is like a typical gorilla's arm, where it has that massive hair on the forearm, and you can see where it's digging. And it's a neat picture. So we got this video and this picture of something digging in the ground. So what I'm thinking is, they see us burying our dead, so maybe they were burying their dead. And when I was sitting there thinking that this one in Akron, maybe it had a dead child and it was burying it, because the grave they dug up, the guy was cremated and he was put in a box and put into the ground, and they buried it. Now, within 24 hours, that grave was looking the same it was before it was dug up. And there's no security cameras.
Oh, yes. I recall the video now of those two young kids. It was daytime.
Yeah, it was daytime. And there's no security cameras around. The people who work there at the cemetery, they're told not to talk about it. And, they know there's something there. They know this thing, whatever it was, wasn't human. Because I've got pictures of the grave after it was dug up. And it was about 2 feet deep. I couldn't even do it with my own bare hands. So why would somebody be digging up, ashes of someone? But this thing was like really, really weird. It was a strange video. And we get things like that all the time. It's hard to make out what this stuff is. Now, I've got stories of like dogmen in cemeteries. I've got 3 of them on 3 different occasions through a 20-year period, where people were in cemeteries and they seen these dog-headed creatures wearing capes, always walking in 2s or 3s, going through the cemetery. Are they dogmen? I don't know, but they said these things are dog type entities, but they said they're wearing capes. It could be a cult wearing masks, probably so. That's my take on it. But 3 different people through a 20-year period told me that story in different parts of the country. It's weird. Cemeteries are odd places. A lot of weird stuff happened there. Yeah.
Tell me about it. My friend, we got about a minute and a half here before we got to go to our final break of the night, Joedy. Do you believe then, like getting back to the coincidences between Dogman and Bigfoot, do you think that there are any type of similarities between the two creatures that you have been able to put together?
No, they're totally day and night. Now, I mean, I went through some of my reports from the 1980s, and some of the reports, Bigfoot reports, were Dogman sightings, where they were talking about the pointed ear, the pointed snout, the legs were kind of like a dog, because, back in the 80s, you never got a Dogman sighting. The only Dogman sighting in Ohio was the 1972 Defiance, Ohio case. And that made international news. Even Stephen King in his book, Silver Bullet, but I think it was called The Moon of the Werewolf or something like that, I think was the original title, where the railroad worker was killed by the werewolf, and the beginning part of the movie and the book, he based that off of the Defiance, Ohio case, because 3 railroad workers were attacked by this thing at night. So that was like the only Dogman sighting until late 2000s. Or late 1990s, rather, and where all that stuff would start picking up and picking up and picking up. It's just because of, the environment changing, because we're building more and more and more. Ohio's flat land, we're farm country.
Right.
All the towns and stuff's all gathered around the cities. And once you get out of the city, man, it's just flat farmland. And we have forests and, woods and all that stuff, but it's just, cornfield after cornfield after cornfield when you're going up 71, 75.
I hear you. Joedy, I got to get you to hold on right there. I got to hop out for our final break of the night. Joedy Cook is our guest. We're talking Bigfoot and Dogman for another 30 minutes here on Space Out Radio before we bring in Everett Themer and The Encounter. We'll be back with more SOR right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we go over to the United Kingdom, where paranormal researcher Rick Kirkby is going to join us. We're going to talk ghosts, EVPs, and so much more, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, and don't forget, you can also check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Oniro, I don't even know what the hell this is. Onirogmophobia. One Irogmophobia? I don't know. But Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Joedy Cook. He is a Sasquatch and Dogman researcher based out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and his work is well known across North America. Joedy, welcome back.
I'm happy to be here.
Hey, I got a question for you for my Canadian audience. Is there a difference in the sightings between Canada and the U.S., whether it's Dogman or Bigfoot?
You know, the Dogman, the Bigfoot stuff, I've always felt it was the same. You know, the Canadians look at Bigfoot as a cannibal. You know, here in the States, you know, we don't look at him as that because we don't have enough in our culture to know about it like the Canadians do. Because in Canada, there's a much stronger bond with your Native Americans than it is here in the States. And so I think when it comes to Bigfoot, it's the same, but yet there's a little bit of difference there. Dogman is a whole different thing. The Canadians deal with it different. There was one guy that we talked to who works for the Canadian, I guess, version of the U.S. Forestry Service. And this guy was telling us in this one particular park that he worked at, they knew that they were there. They knew they were in that park. And they really didn't like the idea of people camping in that park. And they were doing their damnness to stop it. But it was a money thing. And he was saying that he was working alone one night. His supervisor told him if anything happens, go ahead and notify him. They had M16 rifles, in their armor there. And some kids came in to go camping, and they were killed. And he said that there comes this special response team came in and cleaned the area up. And he said he was terrified to stay there at night. And they keep one guy at a night, and his job is to leave his building, go out to the vehicle and do the rounds and stuff. And he said they hated it. No one ever wanted to work night shift there. And they dealt things different, than we do here, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's the same, but he said there's a special team up in Canada that takes care of things like that takes care of, the killings. Yeah.
Is this a military team or a private contractor type team? Because I've never heard of this.
Well, I don't think that they're, per se, associated with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. They're have to be either contract security or former military personnel who are employees that eventually falls under the Department of Defense or the Department of Homeland Security here in the States are the ones doing it. In Canada, I guess it would be the Ministry of Defense is where that would fall under. That's the way I look at it. And that I like I said, I truly don't believe they're actual military personnel. There's they're just contracted people that do this. Because when they're contracted people, they don't have to follow the same guidelines the military would have to follow.
Where in Canada did this happen?
Nova Scotia, I believe it was. He said
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia, I think, somewhere around that area. I believe that's what I have to go back and look at the report. I might be wrong about that because Nova Scotia, I know, is up on the coastal area, and I don't think there's any national forest around that area there. I have to look, to be honest with you, because this was about 2 years ago when I got this report and talked to the guy. So I have to look at the original email, because when I get emails, what I do is I'll take a file and I'll take the email, or I make copies of the emails or any of the texts, and I put it in that file. So I have to go. I'll get back with you on that. I want to say Nova Scotia for some reason, but that's, that may not be it. Because like you said, this was about 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a neat story. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more depth about it, because the supervisor, knew what was going on, and when something happens, it's like they know it's going to happen, and the team comes in without them even making a call to tell them about it. It was like one of these things, like they have like monitors out in the field there that I guess that picks up sounds or screams or whatever into a location, and they're able to send a satellite in to look at the area. So that's how they find out about that stuff. That's the way he was explaining it. So because they don't have to make phone calls to anybody, they just show up. Mm-hmm.
I have a question coming in from the chat room that basically is asking, where does a creature like Mothman come into play with Bigfoot and Dogman? Is it just part of the phenomena?
It's part of the phenomenon. It's a cryptid. This is my theory, and I've always been fascinated with Mothman and like the Flatwoods Monster. And Mothman happened a few years after the Flatwood Monsters. And the Flatwood Monster was in Flatwood, West Virginia, and Mothman was in Point Pleasant. And there's not that far of a distance between the both. But my theory is that the Flatwood Monster was a hibernation, I'm trying to think of the right word for that, a hibernation device for the Mothman. And, where maybe it is extraterrestrial. Mothman was extraterrestrial. And once, he got to a certain point, he came to either be a Mothman, because all the Flatwood Monster stuff stopped immediately. And then the Mothman stuff came about. And there's still Mothman sightings, but we're not getting any reports of anything like the Flatwoods Monster anywhere in the United States, or let alone anywhere in the world, of anything that's even close to the Flatwoods.
Mm-hmm.
Sighting.
You look at both of those creatures, and granted, the Flatwoods Monster was said to be made out of some sort of metallic material,
right?
But the similarities with the red eyes, I mean, there's a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah, they are, and that's why. The upper part of the creature was flesh. The bottom part of the creature was a mechanical device. Okay, where I think, like I said, it was some type of maybe like a hibernation, or kind of like a locust shell, or a cocoon for the Mothman. And this thing just evolved, and that's where the Mothman came about. And that, I know it's kind of a far-fetched theory, But it just, to me, it kind of makes sense a little bit because, you know, one came right after the other, and there's just like no more sightings of flatwoods at all. You know, and the Mothman is just booming, sightings all over the country. You know, so I mean, you know, anything's possible. Like you said, it's a strange world we live in, and have an open mind to it. Anything is possible. Now, I don't, like I said, I don't think there's any connection, you know, with Bigfoot or any other cryptid, you know. But yeah, it's one of my favorites, the Mothman, you know, in Flatwoods and stuff. You know, these little cryptids are some of the best. You know, like here I live in, you know, in Cincinnati, and Loveland is a town a little bit north of us, and we have the Loveland Frogman. And it's this reptilian-type creature, about 5 feet, that looks like a frog. And what's so interesting about this case is the two best sightings of this thing were both by Loveland police officers, and both of them discharged their weapons on it. You know, so, and we have a castle that is a man-made castle. This guy built the Loveland Castle by hand, you know, with like milk cartons, okay, as the bricks. He used the milk cartons to make the bricks. And he built this castle, and he talked about how this frogman would sit and watch him build this castle. And it's a beautiful castle. If you ever Google the Loveland Castle, it's beautiful inside and out. And one guy built that thing by hand, by himself. And this is where all the sightings took place, was over by where this castle they built. But there again, this is another thing that there have been no sightings ever after those incidents happened. So did the police kill it? Maybe so. But there have not been any more sightings. There was a sighting about maybe a year and a half ago when the Pokemon crave was going wild, you know, with people doing that Pokemon stuff. And the guy took this picture of this creature with glowing eyes and the little Miami River. It says, I got the Loveland Frogman, you know, when I was looking for Pokemon. You know, it's just some crazy crap. But, you know, like I said, all the sightings stopped. And there's no more sightings of the Loveland Frogman anymore. Yeah. But it's a neat cryptid.
Where do you think a lot of these creatures are coming from? Are they figments of imagination? Are they real? Are they hallucinations because of, you know, maybe drugs or some kind of psychotropic enhancements, if we could put that politely? Or do you think that there is more to this alien infestation that we really know?
You know, it's hard saying, you know, we can't have like a mass hysteria of people seeing stuff. Okay. If so, then somebody, chemtrails or something, are doing something to make people see things that's not there. You know, the government's doing something to make us see something that's not there or something. You can't have this many people just seeing stuff like cryptids and UFOs. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, so it's got to be something that's flesh and blood, something that's either already been here, or something, like I said, it's in the hollow earth theory, or, you know, could be extraterrestrial, or, you know, like I said, go back to where it was always here, and, you know, no one's ever seen them, or if they did see them, they thought it was something that was local, you know, critter or something like that, and they left it at that. You know, and a lot of times people see things and they don't say nothing to anybody about it. You know.
But a lot of these creatures, Joedy, they seem to be one and done type sightings.
A lot of them are. A lot of them are like that. You know, like you said, the Loveland Frogman, you know, I think there's a total of 3 sightings altogether on that. 2 of them were by police officers on 2 different locations. The Flatwoods Monster, I think that was only 1 sighting, you know, on there. The Kirkland Melonheads, I believe that there was just less than, you know, a handful of sightings with that particular case. Betsy, the lake monster in Lake Erie, I think there was only just 1 or 2 sightings, you know, of Betsy. You know, and that's just how it is. You know, they're just, you know, either people are seeing it and they're thinking that it's something other than what it is, or they see it, they don't want to say nothing because they think they're either hallucinating or people are going to make fun of them. You know, I think these things are seen a lot more than we think they are. You know, give you an example. In Akron, Ohio, in one of the metro parks up there, there's a dogman in these parks. And the park even admitted it. They even told us, we know what's there, but we don't talk about it. So they know there's something there. And the whole point of it is that they haven't hurt anybody yet, so why do something? You know, I even talked to a ranger that saw this thing, and I was there within 12 hours of his sighting. And it was snowing that night, and I was able to find 168 tracks of this thing coming out of the wood line, or out of the, you know, going in the woods, coming into the wood line where he saw it at. Now, right across the street, there's condominiums. Okay, so the people in the condominiums are seeing these things because these things run across the road, and we talk to people that almost hit them running across the road in front of them. And the people in the condominiums like, oh yeah, these large dogs are digging in the dumpster, and they're able to run on 2 legs while they're carrying the stuff. You know, it's not that, you know, they're seeing, you know, dogs run on 2 legs because they're carrying the garbage. They're seeing these dogmen that are carrying the stuff back over into the woods, running on 2 legs. So it just goes to where they see something and they assume it to be something natural.
When we look at Pennsylvania and the lichen reports that are there, Butch Witkowski, who comes on this show once a month to talk everything cryptid, he talks about this bipedal canine that is much more vicious and terrorizing than a lot of these dogman reports that we are having. Seems to be a little bit of a bigger creature, walks more on 2 legs. Do you think there are different species of these creatures roaming around? Or do you think that maybe, you know, one's a werewolf?
Now, you know, a werewolf is a human that changes into a wolf. That's what werewolf means. And it's, you know, that's folklore. Okay. This is a whole different species. Okay. Now, are they different species of it? No. And this is what I'm going to explain. They are species. Are they different breeds of a species? Yes. Just like gorillas and primates, they know they're different I can't say breeds when it comes to like chimpanzees and gorillas, but they know they're different groups within the species that are different. Like in the Congo, they just found a new grouping of gorillas and chimpanzees that are totally different from any other gorilla or chimpanzee that's been found in Africa. So that's a new breed of the species, just like the human beings. We don't say breeds, we say races. We have, you know, your Asians, you have your Africans, you have your Caucasians, you know, you have your Samoans, you have your Hispanics. Okay, we're all the same species, but we're different breeds of their species. You see? So Dogman is the same thing. Bigfoot is the same thing. You look at Bigfoot. You know, the eastern Bigfoot is a lot different from the western Bigfoot. The southern Bigfoot's a lot different from both of them. The Fylth monster's something totally different. You look at the Almiska in Russia, you look at the Yeren, in China, and you look at the Yeti. They're all different in characteristics, but they're the same species, but different breeds of the species. Dogman's the same way. Different parts of the country, they're different. They're the way they act are different. Their sizes are different. In Pennsylvania, in the Shenango Valley of Pennsylvania, the dogmen that are seen in there are much different than the ones that are seen in Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Totally different. Totally different.
Mm-hmm. With that species, do we notice an aggression difference as well? Much like the southern Sasquatch, or if you want to call it, the booger or swamp monster or whatever, seems to be a lot more vicious and agitated than its northern cousins.
No, when it comes to Dogman, they're nasty bastards. I'm sorry to say it, but that's how they are. The whole species is like that. Bigfoot's a little bit different. The eastern Bigfoot is more aggressive than the western Bigfoot. Okay? The southern Bigfoot, he's not as aggressive as the eastern, but yet he's just as docile as the western Bigfoot. Now, when you go up to Canada, they're much bigger, and they're cannibals. They'll eat you. And that's, like the Yeti. I don't think the Yeti is a Bigfoot-type creature. I think the Yeti is an ape. I think it's an actual ape. I think it's probably more of an evolved Gigantopithecus than it is of a Bigfoot-type creature. Because the characteristics of the Yeti is a lot like the Gigantopithecus. And the thing of it is, when, say, take the Congo for an example. Okay, the Congo hasn't changed in 65 million years. Okay, so if there's a dinosaur living, in the Congo, it probably didn't change that much. It probably did, but not a whole lot, meaning that it only grew as far as the environment let it grow. And it only changed as far as the environment let it changed. Now, Makilabimbe, in the Congo is like a brontosaurus, a brachiosaurus, but it's not as big as the ones that died out 65 million years ago. It's a little bit larger than a African elephant. It's because the environment would not let it grow any further than what it is. Now, when you take the Everglades in the United States, there's stories of dinosaurs in there, in the Everglades. So people have seen them. People have talked about it. Some people have been there, Everglades, all their life and never seen anything, because they just weren't looking for it. But anything is possible. There's things probably still living today, that shouldn't be living. Do I believe that they're dinosaurs? Probably. Yeah, I truly believe that there's somewhere in the world, there's something, maybe not be a T-Rex or an Allosaurus or a Velociraptor, but it's something. I mean, you look at the coelacanth, which they thought was extinct. Look at the megalodon shark. They're finding actual teeth that are being washed ashore in Australia, and these are not, fossilized teeth. These are real teeth of a megalodon. So it's a possibility that, things survive. Yes, I truly believe that.
Joedy, we only got about 90 seconds left with you, my friend. I would love it if you could tell our listeners where they can find your information, where they can watch your videos, or maybe you're going to be making an appearance or two at a couple of, conferences coming up here.
Yeah. The best way to get you can go on our website, which is www.NorthAmericanDogmanProject.com. You can reach us through our Facebook page. You can reach me through Facebook. You can email me at OC4BFS@hotmail.com. So it's the Ohio Center for Bigfoot Studies is basically what it says. You can contact me through there. You can find our DVDs on Amazon. The Beast of Land Between the Lakes and the Wisconsin Werewolf. You can find those there. I got a couple events coming up. They're just smaller events, ones at Post Town in September, and then there's just a small one here in Cincinnati, a little bit north of Cincinnati in Wilmington area in August next month. But that's the best way to get a hold of me, like you said, through Facebook or my email.
Awesome, buddy. Appreciate you coming on in and breaking down those stories for us, my friend.
All right. Anytime, buddy. Anytime.
All right. You take care. Joedy Cook, everyone, on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, we have The Encounter with Everett Themer.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains close and in the darkness we expose what lies beneath.
We are encountering The Encounter tonight with Everett Themer as we take a look around the world at the news of the day, as the news is always changing, and that's why we bring it to you via The Encounter. Want to check it out? Go to facebook.com/SOR The Encounter. Give it a like if you don't mind. Everett Themer, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
I always love coming on.
Oh my goodness, sir, your level's hot. We didn't even hear that, my friend. It just like...
Really?
Yeah. Now you're calm. It's always your first... It's always the first time you talk. We get that. It's weird.
That is kind of weird.
Yeah. Buddy, I know you usually find the stories du jour of the weird and strange, but I got one for you that has me scratching my head that I wanted to share with you and our audience. So
Go ahead.
You know how the public or everybody's jumping on the banning the plastic straw bandwagon right now. And believe it or not, I took little SOR out for breakfast this morning, and it's the first time I actually sipped out of a paper straw. It was kind of cool, different, not sure I liked it. I'm a little particular on the straws, but nonetheless, we got the job done, the liquid in the belly, and it was just fine. So Starbucks is one of these companies that is promoting the paper straw. Here is the oxymoron of it all. All right. They have their straws, their paper straws, packaged in plastic.
There are several things I dislike about this whole thing. For one, when I've never used a paper straw, but when people talk about them, I picture them as that kind of flimsy stuff that pixie stick powder used to come in. That
yes,
they kind of fall apart after about, I don't know, a minute of use.
Well, it's a thicker. It's almost like a cardboard, right? It's almost like a cardboard. But I mean, the whole point is, how can you sit here? Okay, like the caption on the photo I saw today basically said, "One Earth, many sips. Flavored coffee ice straws in plastic bags." Like, if there isn't irony in this whole thing, that one straw is sitting in this giant plastic bag that could probably hold 3 or 4 straws, I don't know what is.
Well, my first thought is that's great, because even if it's in a plastic wrapper, they've reduced the amount of plastic. But most straws, at least around by me, it's a plastic straw wrapped in a paper wrapping.
Yes.
So there's no reason why it couldn't, from the beginning, be wrapped in paper.
I find it very, very strange, my friend. It is the epitome of irony. You know, sure, you may be saving a little bit on the plastic and the amount of plastic, maybe some of the chemicals that go inside, okay? Because most straws are actually a thicker plastic than the wrapping. And I get that, and I appreciate that. And, of course, there has to be health and everything. But why could you not put the paper straw in a paper wrapper?
Maybe it has something to do with humidity and shipping or storage, that kind of thing.
I need to know this. I need to know this before I will accept the fact that the plastic wrapper is wrapped around the paper straw.
But where does it end? Remember the old glass bottles, the glass soda or pop bottles, depending on what part of the world you're in, where you would take them back and they would reuse them and fill them again and send them back to the store. And then they switched over to the plastic 2-liter bottles with the idea of that it was easier to recycle. It was a better container size. You could buy, in bulk, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so we quit using the glass bottles. Now all of a sudden plastic is the issue, which 20 years ago, glass was the issue. Plastic was easy to recycle. Now we're coming down on plastic. Where does it end? Or what is the final best packaging for a product?
I don't know. But I think this looks really moronic that you have a plastic wrapper around a paper straw. And I do have to say this. I have to go on Twitter here and give a shout out to Derek, who said the straw issue was fixed years ago, showing a can of lemonade, it looks like, with a Twizzler in there. Who hasn't used a Twizzler as a straw?
The hole in the middle of a Twizzler is so small. I mean, I don't understand straws to begin with. It takes forever to drink something.
I know.
What happened to just using the hole in the packaging, and if whether it be the top or the cups that had the small little holes in them to drink out of? Why do we need straws on so many of these different things anyway? And who drinks their coffee? Who drinks their coffee out of a straw?
Yeah, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's like drinking tea or beer with a straw. There's certain things you just don't do. But I'm a straw guy. I am a big time straw guy. I like the straw.
Really?
I do.
I can understand that, I guess.
I don't like going to a bar, okay? And you see them wash those glasses so quickly. I don't know if they're actually clean. And putting my lips on that just kind of grosses me out. So I'm a straw guy.
Yeah, but there the alcohol kills the germs.
True. It's just me, man. It's just me. Let's move on. You got a packed house on the encounter tonight.
We do, and we're going to focus a little bit here on Japan because I don't quite know what they're doing. Trump announced his Space Force, and one of the potential objectives for that was the idea of space debris. Well, in the past 2 weeks, there have been 2 companies coming out of Japan that have announced basically they're going to launch junk into space, just stuff. One of the companies is going to allow newlyweds to have their names engraved on titanium plates. And then those plates are going to be sent up to the ISS, where they will then be launched into space in cubes to float around in orbit, just floating around for no giant reason other than to say you have your name in space. And then another company they're developing a system to create man-made meteor showers. And this is actually the more dangerous one, because what they're going to do is launch these satellites that will then release pellets that will fall back to the atmosphere, and these pellets will be proprietary to develop or to create different colors. But these pellets will be about 2 centimeters in diameter. And as they fall back to Earth, they create a potential hazard for anything that is orbiting the Earth.
All in the space race, eh?
Well, no, I don't think either one of them has anything to do with technology or the space race, really. The idea,
but to get the flag up there, that's all it's about.
I guess, to say they have something that they're doing, but they're both private companies, so it's not government sponsored. But the idea, especially this one about launching or creating these imitation meteor showers, when you're dropping thousands or tens of thousands of these pellets into space to fall back to Earth, there is a very big potential, even though they're going to try and mitigate the danger of something hitting, whether it be a commercial satellite or they're especially concerned about spy satellites because those can't or aren't tracked and monitored and publicized. So when these things are released, a 2 centimeter diameter ball essentially racing back to Earth can destroy a satellite. It can destroy a spacecraft. All in the name of creating, well, a beautiful sky display. That would be cool.
There's a big issue there, Everett, because of the fact that there are a lot of I mean, it's very well known. There's so much space junk up there right now that they are it's getting harder and harder to time when rockets can actually go up into space in a clear zone.
And in the next couple of years, it's going to be getting even more crowded up there as Tesla begins to launch. I believe they have on plans a total of like 4,000 satellites, these little microsatellites to launch in terms of being able to provide internet to areas that don't have access to it. So the more of these they launch up there, and those are going to be in low Earth orbit, the more dangerous this becomes in terms of destroying those.
This just sounds like another waste of money. You know, I mean, Japan can be so productive in some areas. I mean, why not figure out a way on how to clean up some of that junk? What about sending some of these little capsules or whatever with little cosmic explosions that actually will help debris, disintegrate or something along that way? And then you get to the show of the explosion in the sky. That would be kind of cool.
That would be cool. And maybe that would be the next step. But I just, when you read this and you look at it, the idea of dropping, basically 1-inch round pellets into the sky just seems horribly, horribly dangerous. Not to mention, they haven't announced a cost yet, but as the estimates are hovering around millions of dollars to have this display created for you.
Mooney in the chat room says, if the balls were made out of Skittles, we could taste the meteors.
Ooh.
That would be
seems like
cool.
That seems like a waste of Skittles, though, because they're just going to burn up in the sky.
True. Very, very true.
Now, if he wants to come over here and throw Skittles at me,
You're a cheap date, Everett Themer. Cheap date. Little. I didn't know that Skittles and Barry Manilow were the way to your heart.
Hey, now there's got to be some coffee in that too.
All right. How about the next story, my friend?
Do you remember that sarcophagus that was found last month in
Egypt?
Yes. Well, they opened it, and they found 3 warrior bodies. Now there's a petition going on. People want to drink the liquid that was found in the sarcophagus.
Oh, just hearing about that makes me want to vomit.
So far, the last I looked, it was in the thousands of people had signed this. And this liquid, they believe, has come from sewage lines and just seeped into it over time. So it's mummy sewage liquid, and these people want to drink it. But I love what they have on their petition because, and I quote this, it says, "We need to drink the red liquid from the cursed dark sarcophagus in the form of some sort of carbonated energy drink so we can assume its powers and finally die." Sometimes you just have to shake your head.
There's a lot of weirdos out there, and it wouldn't surprise me if these weirdos get their way, but I really believe that they were going to dump that out or put it in tubes for testing or something along those lines. But I mean, to auction it off to people, how stupid can you be? Let's just be honest. How stupid can you be to want to drink some unknown liquid that could be potentially 4,000-year-old feces mixed with blood and urine and whatever else has been sitting in a sarcophagus? I mean,
hey, there is nothing better than sarcophagus juice through a paper straw.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Starbucks will lend them the paper straws for that. Oh, terrible.
Tasty.
Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't understand people sometimes.
I mean, I've drank a lot of weird things. That is not one of them that I would ever consider doing.
No. I wouldn't even do, the liquor that comes with the toe in there? I wouldn't do that either.
Good for you, because that's gross.
Yeah. I don't even do tequila with a worm.
Don't people volunteer their toes for that liquid too?
I think
so. Or
so.
for that alcohol, like it's an honor if you have your toe cut off to put in the booze.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of that whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one.
Yeah, either way. I'm not a fan. We got to move on, man. That story's just absolutely grossing me out.
Well, we're not moving too far because we're going to stay in Egypt.
That's fine.
And talk about the zoo that's being accused of painting a donkey to look like a zebra.
I saw this. You're in Africa, man. How hard can it be to get a zebra? Instead of having to paint the poor donkey.
I've looked at the pictures and I've compared, and honestly, I'm not sure.
You can tell the spray paint on it.
The sad thing is, even the vets, there have been several vets that have chimed in on it, and they're not positive that it's not a donkey. Even though the zoo is denying it, of course. The thing is that this isn't the first time that an Egyptian zoo has been accused of doing something like this. One was accused of putting out stuffed animals versus live animals because of an animal shortage. Now, I don't know how hard it is to catch, desert animals out, in the desert, but you would think that they'd be able to have some. And it's not like zebras seem to be all that rare out there.
It's a zebra, man. At least take a horse, okay, and paint the horse.
Who paints? Who got volunteered for that job?
I don't
paint
know.
stripes to paint stripes on a donkey.
I don't know. I'm gonna Google these pictures right now. Zebra donkey. Ah, this is just terrible. Honestly, it's terrible. You could tell by the face that is totally spray painted.
But I guess if you don't know what a zebra looks like and you're coming to the zoo to see one, I guess you could pass it off.
You're in Africa. I mean, you're telling me that there aren't other zoos around the world that wouldn't send you a zebra if you don't want to take one from the wild? And hey, if they don't want to take one from the wild, I'm all for that. To me, that's a logical excuse. All right? That's logical.
I understand that, but every time I turn on one of those Animal Planet or National Geographic channels and they have some wildlife thing on there, the one thing you're guaranteed to see is like a herd of 50 zebras just running around. So it's not like they're scarce. And I'm not saying that it's something, they should put one in captivity. But if you're going to have a zoo and you're going to have zebras, have actual zebras.
I get that. And appreciate that. I mean, you're telling me there isn't another zoo there that even around, the continent that won't send you a zebra? I mean, what kind of zoo rating do you have that another zoo won't even send you a zebra? And you got to paint the donkey. You know what donkeys are used for up here? Donkeys and llamas are all over the farmyards of people here who have horses or cows, because they're such psychotic animals and defensive animals that they will go after predatory animals like bears and cougars.
Oh, wow.
They'll chase them. They're like security guards. They just need the tacky jacket that says yellow security along the back.
So like they're like the sacrificial.
No, they will go into attack mode. If there is a bear or a cougar around, the llamas or the donkeys will literally chase after that animal to scare it away. They're not a sacrificial lamb. They'll take it on.
But who wins, donkey versus bear?
Well, considering that bears are pretty, especially black bears, unless they are ill or extremely hungry, they're pretty skittish. So if something is chasing after them, they will run away.
Okay.
But I mean,
I don't know. I just don't see any use for donkeys at all, especially not in a zoo.
Zebras. They're the new zebra, man. That's what they
not
are.
Here.
And
to be fair, the zoo is denying it. So, as much as this has caused a debate, I don't understand why they haven't agreed to submit something off of it, saliva or hair or something for DNA testing. It seems like we could solve this in a matter of days.
It is weird, my friend. It is weird. But you know what? We got to get going to the thought of the day. Hold on. Thought of the Dave is played every night at this time, where during the day we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter accounts, and then we use your responses on the air, because we always like the audience participation around here. It makes things a little bit more fun when we could include all of you. So today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. Tell me about your experience running into Bigfoot or Dogman. And I got to tell you, there was a real lack of responses today, but that's okay. We got some. Some are humorous, some are real. Some will make you scratch your head. Everett, I know you mentioned this just a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's a good time for you to mention it again. Your wife had a Dogman encounter, did she not?
Yeah, my wife and my mother-in-law had one out here in the wilderness, and they came home late at night one night, and my mother-in-law drew a picture immediately upon getting here, and it was a Dogman. That's all I can say. If
you being a skeptical guy, when they are probably going through this, explaining to you what they saw, what's going through your mind?
I have to believe them. There's no reason. My mother-in-law has no interest in the paranormal. It probably wasn't even on her mind at the time. They saw this thing. If she says she saw it and my wife says she saw it too, and they both kind of describe the same thing, and my mother-in-law draws this picture, I have to accept the idea that there is something out there other than what we think is out there. Now, the picture she drew, I don't see it as being like a coyote with mange or anything like that. So I have to accept that there is something out there beyond what I necessarily used to think was out there.
Well, let's get to one on Twitter here from Osmarty. States, well, I personally haven't ran into either, but my grandfather ran into a supposed nesting bed of one in the 70s while hunting in British Columbia with his best friend. I have a picture of the nest and bed. When they approached the area as well, they felt as though they were being watched, and later he heard these god-awful screams from up the hill where they were. He also went on to tell me that there have been numerous sightings from the loggers back in the day. I will dig up some more information about the whereabouts in British Columbia he was when they were hunting and came across the evidence. Red Lake, British Columbia. Well, that's pretty much everywhere over this province, is you have those weird, strange areas. So that wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me. I haven't seen Dogman. I don't know if I want to see Dogman. Out of all the weird crap that I have seen over the years, man, I don't think I'd want to see Dogman. Robin states, if I let my facial hair keep growing, my face will look as hairy as a Bigfoot face. Interesting. Keith, I had to run into Walmart to grab some soy sauce and rice noodles. As I rounded the corner, there was a Bigfoot holding a jar of Jeffalite fish and reading the back of the bag of Matzah 4. He looked at me, said, do you know if this is gluten-free? I said, sorry, I don't know. He shrugged. No problem, thanks anyways. Walked down the aisle. Who knew Bigfoot was gluten intolerant?
It's gefilte fish, and I didn't realize he shopped at my Walmart.
Oh, my goodness. David states, my daughter, who is 5, told me this morning that she went into bed with mommy this morning after she seen a dog on springs, meaning stilts, in her bedroom. A bit unnerving. Personally, I have no experiences with this creature. Very, very weird indeed, my friend.
I want to see one. I do.
I don't know. That Dogman stuff kind of freaks me out. Everett Themer, where can people find the encounter for right now?
Right now, they can find it on Facebook at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter Online.
Excellent. Thank you so much for hopping on in. We will talk to you tomorrow night, Mr. Themer.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to it.
Not a problem. Tomorrow night on the program, actually, let's give a thank you to Joedy Cook, who came on the first 2.5 hours of the show talking Bigfoot and Dogman research. We got going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and we will do it all again tomorrow night when Rick Kirkby joins us from the United Kingdom talking ghosts, paranormal, EVPs, ITC, and so much more at the mighty SOR. I will be back in the hot seat as well. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. I want to say a big thank you to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. A big special thank you to everybody for a packed house in Spreaker tonight. You were fantastic. Everyone at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Your snark, magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. And, of course, Packed House and the Veterans Club and the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. Thank you so much for the show. I hated that password tonight, though. But thanks for sharing the show. Thanks for telling your friends and doing your part to make us bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.